Hey, I'm Rachael,
And I'm Amanda, and this is Beyond a Ballot.
powered by DoorDash.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond a Ballot. We are so excited for this one. It's a big week in Canadian politics. Prime Minister Mark Carney has just announced his cabinet, and we have two extremely special guests to join us. The first, Mary Ng, Canadian politician who served the riding of Markham Thornhill since a by-election on April 3rd, 2017, did not run in this most recent election. So we're going to ask her about that. She was also the Minister of Export Promotion, International Trade and Economic Development, the role that she received in 2018 and became the longest serving trade minister in Canadian history. We also have the very talented Marci Ian, also a Canadian politician. She became the member for Toronto Centre and House of Commons from 2020 up until the most recent election, 2025. She also did not run. She also served as a minister in the Trudeau government. She was the Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Youth from 2021 to 2025. We couldn't have more expertise on this panel to give us a deep dive into the Carney cabinet. Thank you both for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
It's really terrific to be here.
Okay, Marci, I'm going to start with you. So this cabinet was announced yesterday. I'd love to just get first thoughts. What were your first thoughts as you saw this cabinet, this huge cabinet announcement?
That it looks like Canada. It looks like Canada. I looked at the cabinet and I looked at regional representation. I looked at all sorts of diversity. I was so pleased that wage was fully back. And I thought this represents the country and the Canada Strong that the Prime Minister has been talking about. You know, in order to get there and do that, you have to have voices and varied voices that come from varied journeys. That's how we get things done. And I looked at it and thought, okay, this is quite the team.
Love that. Mary, your first thoughts when you saw the cabinet announcement?
Well, it wouldn't surprise you that I look at it from an economic lens, as I often do. And I agree with what Marci said, but the Prime Minister committed to Canada Strong. What that means is, does he have a team that's going to build Canada and make us resilient, our economy resilient? Does he have people there leading the charge with the Prime Minister to deal with Canada-US? Are we able to also grow Canada by growing around the world? That's informed by a lot of the work that I have done for many years, so it wouldn't be surprising for me to look at it that way. And so I think that he has got a strong team that can do the relationship work around the world, tackle the United States, build what we need to do here in Canada, whether it's resources or energy or just the incredible domestic businesses in technology and AI that you're seeing. He's put some focus on. And are we going to, after this work, not after this work, are we going to be able to start that work right away, hitting the ground running? And I think that's what I saw in yesterday's cabinet.
So all of us political nerds, obviously, we're all texting each other like, did anyone see anyone at the airport last night? Cabinet. Then you both have been there, but that walk to Rideau Hall, down the path, and all the media saying, oh, we see Evan Solomon. Who in your mind, I'll start with Mary, was the biggest surprise either to be there or to not be in that cabinet appointed yesterday?
Well, what I had incredible joy in seeing were the three incredible women, Indigenous leaders, right? Like new, right? I mean, so you have, and I want to make sure I've got the names right. So Mandy Galmasti from Quebec, who is taking on Indigenous services, who is the former, Grand Chief of the Cree Council, right? I mean, then you've got Rebecca Alty, who was the former mayor of Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, taking on the job of Crown Indigenous Relations, and then you've got another Rebecca Chartron from Manitoba, Manitoba, up in Churchill, took that seat, really important seat,
Mm-hmm.
taking on Northern and Arctic affairs, but with the responsibility for Northern economic development. Like, I looked at it and I thought, wow. And then I'll add a guy in there, Buckley from Saskatchewan. So to
Yeah.
see these people walk up, and I remember what it felt like to walk up those, you know, to yes, be stalked at the airport, so that they're asking you like,
Okay, it's more
so
good.
you're here.
Yeah.
Does that mean something? And then also walk up that runway to Rideau Hall. It was really special to see that.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Marci, who were you?
It brings back memories, doesn't it, Mare? That walk.
Yeah.
I remember doing that. I remember doing that walk, and my kids were with me, and I have to share this with you because I felt it was surreal. I thought, am I really here? Am I meant to be here? I don't want to call it imposter syndrome, but it was kind of like that. But having said that, I have to tell you, and I'm going to mention women and gender equality again, because when we didn't see a minister for wage in the previous incarnation, the calls and the concern and everything else, and I just have to say, the Prime Minister listened. So when I saw Richie Valdez walking up and understood that she would be the Minister for Women and Gender Equality, and also keep that portfolio, to Mary's point about economic strength, keep that portfolio of small business as Secretary of State for Small Business, I thought this is absolutely great, and this is what we need. I also have to say, Marjorie Michelle,
yes,
that was in that. Listen, I have to say, wow. Really, really happy about that. This is a woman who is obviously more than capable, but she is one who listens, and she is one who can speak to anybody. It doesn't matter what political stripe you are, and get things done. So I have to say that I loved all of that. There are many more, but I'll stop talking.
Tell us, where did she go? What's
Health. She's the Ministry of Health. Yeah, she's the Minister of Health. And so much going on. You know, we've got pharmacare that still needs to get done. We need dental that, you know, is still there. And we've got, of course, so many other things that she will dig into and do well at.
You both touched on your personal experience. I'd love to just elaborate on that for a moment, because I think I have a couple of questions. First, I think a lot of our listeners wonder, how does it happen? Like, is there a phone call? Is somebody informed? Do you come to a special office? Are you officially asked? Like, could you kind of take us through the process?
All of the above.
Okay.
Do you want to go
Mare,
first, Mare? Whichever.
Give us that kind of like, take us in behind the scenes. What happens when you're first asked to be part of cabinet?
Well, I have to share my personal experience, because I was an MP. I'd been an MP for about a year, and I was actually doing, I was actually overseas. I was visiting my mother overseas.
Oh my God!
And I got a call that said, we'd like you to come in to meet the Prime Minister. And I said, when would you like, when? Because I said, I'm not in the country right now. They said, well, can you get back right away? I said, well, I could, but while I'm here, I also made some commitments and organized some meetings that I thought would be really good to do as an MP. And they said, oh, I said, so if I leave, that means I don't do that. And I feel like that might trigger something, and it might cause more of an issue if I just hopped on a plane. So they said, sure, no problem. How soon can you get home? And as it turned out, I mean, I was doing the commitments the next day anyways. So it was just like another 24 hours.
Wow.
So I got on a plane, came home, and then flew immediately to Ottawa. And the Prime Minister meets you. The Prime Minister talks to you about your commitment and would you like, and that he would like you to serve in his cabinet in this role.
Wow.
I think I hugged the Prime Minister so hard that I might have actually broken his rib at the time. Because to Marci's point, like my family came here in the mid-70s. We are we're not very different from a lot of immigrant stories, right? Like my parents came here to give us all a better life, right? I mean, and to think that I would be a cabinet minister under a Trudeau government when we came here, when we immigrated to Canada, it was also a Trudeau government. There was just all kinds of specialness to it at the time. But I just saw it as such a privilege. But yes, you get the call. Yes, you do go and meet the Prime Minister. Yes, the Prime Minister asks you to serve. And hopefully you don't break their ribs in hugging them. And you accept. And then the rest of it, quite candidly, is a bit of a blur. So
Mayor,
I don't know. Marci might be able to, kind of fill in the rest of that, first time thing.
Did you get it? Was there a screening interview? Did anybody sit down with you before? Or did you go straight?
For my first one, no, because I had been an MP. I had worked in the Prime Minister's office for a year and some.
So
I then chose to run in my riding. I served as a backbench MP and sat on committees and did all the things that a backbench MP did. So I kind of got, I got a really great orientation into parliamentary life,
Yes.
which, by the way, I would say to everyone who thinks that cabinet is it, yes, it's an important part. But I have to say, being a backbench MP to serve on committees is an integral part of Canada's democracy. So I did that for a year and whatever.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that was the vetting.
That's a huge. So listen, I got a call, and yes, it was to go to Ottawa. But I sat down, and I hope I'm not breaching anything, but I sat down with Bob Ray, who basically asked me a bunch of questions. And it was a vetting. It was like a vetting process, and I was under the impression that if Bob said yes, she can move along to the next step, then it would be a yes. But if he said no, I wouldn't be moving along to the next step. So I guess I made that, and then I got a call to go and meet with the Prime Minister. And I have to say, it was very, very emotional because, to your point, Mayor, my parents did the same. They emigrated from Trinidad and Tobago. It was another Trudeau government. And, I couldn't hold back the tears and thinking, what, my mom and dad, my mom has now passed away. My dad, both weren't well at the time. And I thought, I'm not even their wildest dream. They wouldn't even have conceived of this. And so it was very, very emotional. And to be asked to be the Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Youth, I thought, my gosh, it's what I focused on, with regards to my journalism career. It couldn't have been a better fit for me. I was so excited, but scared too. There was a bit of terror as well, going, wait a minute, this is huge. But so grateful.
Yeah, I share the terror thing too, the scared thing too.
I'm going, wait a minute, this is real.
Yeah.
This is real.
Before the terror set in, can you I'm like dying to know. You walk out of PMO, you're standing there. What street is that? Wellington in Ottawa. You just found out you're going to be in, or wherever it is that he asked you. What's the first thing you do? Do you go celebrate? Do you call your family? Like, who's the first phone call? How did that day play out?
I remember it was family. It was my kids, actually. And one of them was kind of young, so understood but didn't quite understand. But my daughter understood very, very well, and we had a moment. There was some emotion on that call because she understood exactly what this was and the gravity of it, but the joy as well, and the possibility of what was to come.
Yeah. So having done the work as the Prime Minister's head of appointments, it was instilled in me sort of the confidentiality part of it.
Yes.
So I basically was, kind of like, oh, wait a second, like I can't screw this up because he asks you, but you can't tell anybody.
How many days is that between when you're asked and you're sworn in?
Well, so you got to be a bit pragmatic here because you get to actually ask your family to attend, right? And in my case, because it was not a full cabinet, it was a cabinet shuffle along with a number of people. I could tell a few select friends. And by the way, you don't have a lot of time to tell your few select friends, because they ask you to join to serve in cabinet, and then you've got to go to Rita Hall. That time is not a lot, because they don't give you a lot of notice. So I remember calling my brother, who was overseas, and said, "Can you please get on a plane?" And he had to get on a plane.
And he did.
He did. I called Amanda. She came to my swearing in. So I called a handful of friends. My sister, however, was out of the country. There's a story about planes, trains, automobiles. She was out of the country and she couldn't get back for my swearing in.
Oh, no.
It was the most heartbreaking, awful thing. If you guys know my sister, and I so wanted my sister to be there. So for my first cabinet swearing in, she couldn't be there. But I called the people who I wanted to be with me there. And all of you will know that, Katie Telford and I, and, we're good friends. So she was in the PMO. She was the chief of staff. So I didn't have to tell her. She was already there. So that, but I called. Yeah. So again, my family and the few friends that I was able to invite, because it was a shuffle, we were afforded a few more seats than you typically would during a big cabinet swearing in like yesterday. So I had a few people, so I was allowed to call those people and swear them to secrecy and say,
wow,
you need to come. But you can't, and this is why. And you can't say anything and just show up. And and I don't even remember how I gave them the details, because I think all of that stuff sort of, as I said, was a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
But my brother did fly in from overseas.
Your stories give me like chills. I love hearing those stories. And it makes me think of and you must have been thinking about them all yesterday as they were being sworn in, some of your former colleagues, some fresh new faces. That's what's kind of interesting about this cabinet, is that, there are some veteran MPs that have served, that understand what it means to be in cabinet. There's some brand new faces, and then there's some brand new positions. Yeah. So I'm curious about what you think about this host of sort of Secretary of State positions, which we've had in the past, is kind of reemerged again. What did you think of this, I guess, the new sort of formation of this cabinet? Marci, I'll start with you.
Well, it really hones in on the direction, doesn't it? That the Prime Minister wants to take. And so he is saying, listen, as I told you during the campaign, we are focused on Canada. We are focused, yes, there's the Canada-US part, but also building Canada, the interprovincial pieces here. Yes. This is what we're focused on. This is what Canada Strong is. So he's done exactly that. And so he's created this positioning where the ministers who are focused and will be focused on that will have the teams they need to do that. And then those that have more of a linear focus. And I'll use Richie, I'll use Adam Van Couverden as an example too. If you're Secretary of State for Sport, then you will be focused on sport. And, do you need to be attending meetings that are dealing, with international trade or interprovincial trade or Canada-US relations? No, because you're focused on sport. When I thought about this, I thought, when it comes to the secretaries of state, the people that they serve will have somebody that is really focused, uber focused. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. I agree. Not someone that has 2 or 3 parts to their portfolio, right? I was Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Youth. Anna Gainey now has children and youth, and she will only be focused on that. So it's a very interesting thing, but it's deliberate. And the right way to go for this point in time and where we see ourselves as a country.
I love that. Mara, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah,
or
I would
the
agree.
Makeup of this particular cabinet?
So I would agree with that. I mean, if you look at, who's sitting in the seats and how the portfolios have been, created and the Secretary of State. I mean, just to add on Marci's point around the focus, I think it's absolutely right. Take defense procurement. Defense procurement is a focused piece of work that's going to be incredibly important now in terms of how we're going to do that as a country and to whom we're going to do that with, right? And when you have someone like Steve Fuhr working in tandem and side by side along with David McGuinty, that's going to be a really great pair. But it means then that you don't have the defense minister that also has a whole number of things that he's got to worry about, whether it's, our partnership in NATO, Canada, the United States, but also our alliances around the world, the Arctic and so forth. The Minister of Defense gets to do that, but defense procurement needs a focus, as Marci says. But when you look at how the portfolios are complementary of each other, that's what I actually saw too, right? I mean, around Canada Strong. When you got Tim Hodgson doing natural resources, that is working with, it's going to work for sure with the Indigenous ministers, but it's also going to have to work with provinces and territories, provinces in the West. Like you heard from Tim today, his first order of business is he's going to go out West. Those projects need to get done. And it's really terrific to see him doing that work. And then you see the interchange between Chrystia Freeland and Dominic LeBlanc in terms of a one economy for Canada, or removing internal trade. But it's connected to, how do you build rail? How do you build ports? How do you build that infrastructure in a way that actually is an enabler for our agriculture industry that is sitting in the middle of the prairies that need to grow? So I think that there's been a lot of thought given to who will lead those files and how the cabinet team in that building Canada works together, like, sort of the key parts of a jigsaw puzzle.
Okay, so both of you were with the Trudeau government, and you were sitting at the cabinet table towards the end of that government. And we're under no illusion as a country that Canadians, we're getting a little burly with Trudeau and his team. One of the big narratives with this cabinet going into it was, is this going to be a complete refresh from the Trudeau years? And are we going to see all new cabinet ministers at the table? We just talked about that two-tiered system that Prime Minister Carney has put together. But ultimately, one of the big photos that came out yesterday was that front row, that front bench. And who did we see? We saw Chrystia Freeland. We see Dominique LeBlanc. A lot of the Trudeau ministers, big ministers, still sitting there. Melanie Joly. Do you, in your mind, as former colleagues of these people, does this cabinet feel fresh to you? Does it feel renewed? Does it feel new from your experience within the Trudeau government? May I go with Marci? What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely new. Listen, you've got to have a steady hand, right? And so you have the people there that have been through the trenches and understand and have held several portfolios, and that is true. But look at that team. And the one thing that people need to understand with regards to cabinet caucus as well, this is a team. It's not about four or five people. It's about 28 people.
Right.
That's what it's about. And there really is a collaborative approach. And Mary mentioned that as well. So it isn't about four or five. It's about maybe the experiences of four or five. And I think it's important to have that experience, especially in the time that we find ourselves right now. But then it's, how do those four or five integrate with this new team? And that's where the magic happens, if I might use that expression. That's where it happens. That's where people start to work together and bring forth new ideas and collaborate in different ways. So absolutely, this is a huge refresh.
Mary, anything on that?
Yeah, I would agree. I did the numbers yesterday. 28% of the cabinet is brand new MPs, not brand new MPs, but people who who bring with them incredible skill set and capabilities before becoming politicians or MPs. But 50%, I mean, 14 people around that table, it's the first time they've been around a cabinet table. So, when you have people who have experience and who have held different portfolios, that's a real asset on the one hand. But think about your own organizations. When you have half of the table that come in brand new, never been around a cabinet table, with ideas that are ideas from their regions, but also their own lived experiences or their own interactions with caucus, having been a part of, the previous team. That is a real, it's a real new dynamic in there. And I think that the Prime Minister has put this together with his leadership stamp. And remember, this is also a new Prime Minister with a new style of leading this team. So I agree with Marci. It is new.
And now a word from our title sponsor, DoorDash. Just like we go beyond a ballot, DoorDash goes beyond delivery. Previously, we heard from Christine, a dasher in Toronto, about how DoorDash enhances her sense of financial security during moments she needs it most. Now, Christine is sharing how dashing helps connect her with her community. DoorDash is not only offering financial opportunities, but connecting neighborhoods across Canada. Thanks, DoorDash.
It allows me the ability to basically participate in something that I'm passionate about. So whether it be, the grocery shopping or even just picking up food order and knowing that the person on the other end who's receiving it also is being completely satisfied. It is a big deal for me to give back to my community.
With every cabinet announcement, there are people who are celebrating with their friends and family, and there are people who are disappointed. And there are Canadians who are disappointed to not see particular names and faces around that cabinet table. What was your experience of bringing the team back together after people maybe feel that sense of I should have been there, or someone, I really care about should have been there? How do you get past that initial feeling of disappointment to create a cohesive, united team?
Listen,
Either of you can take that one. Go for it, Marci.
Quickly, I guess I'll go. Listen, we all knew when we were, honored to be in those positions, that those positions could never be taken for granted. You're given those positions at the purview of a prime minister, and you could have that position one day and not have it the next. We never took a day for granted, and we all knew that. We all knew that. And to Mary's point earlier, there are so many ways to lead in government. Yeah. There are committees to lead. There are caucuses to lead. There's so many different ways to lead, and all of those ways are important. But when it came to cabinet, there was never, ever taking anything for granted. We knew each and every day that we were lucky to be there. We were lucky to serve Canadians in that way, and it was a special table. But I don't think to a person we thought that there would never be an end to sitting at that table.
Right. Yeah. Except maybe you, Mary, because you held that position. You were the longest serving trade minister.
Yes, and I agree with Marci. It really was a privilege, and you don't take for granted for any moment, because the truth of it is the Prime Minister's prerogative. But one of the things that's going to happen right away, maybe even as early as tomorrow, I don't know. But when you bring caucus together, like when Marci talks about a team, like walk into that caucus room. Rachael, you'll know that feeling from having been there. When it is the team, and now it's a team of 170 from across the country, and many who are elected for the first time, others who are coming back. And Rachael, to your point, there was a period of time when we weren't looking so great in those polls, right? So the fact that you are able to fight and earn the right to come back. You're earned because the people in your riding entrusted you to serve them, right? To represent them. So the fact that you won an election, your own election, is a very, very big deal. So when you come together and you're with 169 other around the table, it's pretty dynamic, and the energy is palpable in those caucus rooms, right? Especially right after an election, and we are governing now. I think that immediately everyone's just going to feel very special that they have been given the opportunity by Canadians. The opportunity is by Canadians. It's not by anybody else. It's by Canadians in your constituency where you worked hard to get elected, and now you get to serve. And there's lots of things to do beyond cabinet. I don't think I've ever met any of my caucus colleagues who weren't around the cabinet table, who weren't just as busy as me. So guess what? It's very, very busy, and they're just they have other work. Ultimately, Canadian democracy works because all parts of it needs to work. Those committees need to work. You need to learn how to work with with the opposition in those committees. And it's the best place to hear directly from Canadians, depending on whatever assignment you get. So I think that's the attitude that that everyone comes in. I mean, you don't come in sort of after working a campaign and then being elected to say, oh geez, gosh, like this sucks. It's like, oh gosh, this is amazing. Like now what do I do, right? So
Totally.
Yeah, I would say too, the talent in caucus.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times, I put together round tables. There's just so much just to talk to caucus members, talk to, friends in caucus and say, listen, you led a business. I need to find a way to get more young people involved in, what are your ideas? Or you are the principal of a school in Winnipeg. Can you tell me about, the educational experience and what I can do? We tapped into caucus so much.
Or you're a family doctor.
Or you're a family doctor.
Tell us, we had just doctors, nurses, teachers, principal, mayors,
social workers,
lawyers, business leaders. It just, it's called the House of Commons for a reason.
Yeah.
It's a house that represents people from a common walk of life from across the country that are afforded the opportunity by Canadians to be their voice for a period of time.
That's so true. That we often lose sight of that, Mary. That's a good point. It is called the House of Commons for a reason. Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you something that I keep getting asked in terms of the dynamics of this cabinet. So under Justin Trudeau, the Liberals put in gender parity, meaning that they would have 50% women at the cabinet table. Myself, I keep thinking, and I'm going to put this to you guys because you actually were there. If I was standing there, there would be something in the back of my mind that would say, am I standing there because of my qualifications, or am I standing there because he needed another woman in this cabinet? As two women, not to degrade your qualifications, because listen, I would vote for you as a conservative, but
thanks, Rachel.
I think, well, you're amazing, and your qualifications are just without question. But did that come into your mind when you were appointed to cabinet after hearing that they would come to this gender parity number? Did that ever cross your mind standing there? Marci's shaking her head.
No, not once. And I have to say, Rachel, there have been times when people have said, well, she got that job because she was Black. Now it's she got that job because she's a woman. I got the job because I'm excellent. And that's and we don't say that enough as women. I'm excellent and I'm more than qualified. And I would say that the women, just look at the portfolios they held. Look at these were we're talking, about defense and foreign affairs and Mary's portfolio and fisheries and you name it. These were the portfolios. There's nothing about a lack of qualification, but everything about making sure that 51% of this country is represented at the largest table in the country. There's everything right about that. These things have to be put into play to actually say, listen, I'm going to be intentional about this and make sure that I have certain people at the table, because systems prevent certain people from being at the table. They do. Systems are put in place to keep people out. And so to have a prime minister that was inclusive and understood that, listen, I need to hear from everybody. This needs to be a collaborative experience. This is how we serve Canada better. To be intentional about saying, I'm going to do this is something very special.
Yeah.
You might remember, Rachel won't, but Amanda will. So when Justin Trudeau became the leader in 2013, leading up to 2015, we were the third party. We had a little tiny room somewhere in the House of Commons as the caucus room. But the work that the party had to do and that he had to do as the leader was to recruit people. So imagine the leader of the third party to say, I want you to run. I want you to run for office because I think your voice matters. I think your experience matters. And he went across the country. He and the team went across the country looking for exceptional people who wanted to build the country, right? I mean, this is leading up to 2015. So the hashtag Add Women Change Politics came from that time, right? We had an entire initiative in the party about going out and recruiting and identifying women. That work continues. And, I'm going to give it, I want to give both of you a shout out here because, the work that you are doing and your audience and your listeners who care about just how does politics work and how does it affect my life? And I think it's essential because I think that you have to begin there. You have to begin with making sure that there is a pathway or pathways for women to want to put their names on a ballot. And I know that when I was approached, and I know I said no. I said no several times. I just refused because I believed that I was going to be just as effective. I was going to make just as much impact. Why did I need to be out in front? And I remember the Prime Minister saying to me at the time, along with other people, if you believe everything you believe, which is that representation matters, that you have to lead from out front. And yes, it's scary to do. And yes, you might think that you can't do it better than you can't do it like somebody else. Guess what? Get over it and do it, please. I mean, and think about doing it and I understood it academically in my brain, but to actually take that leap and it felt like, and Amanda will remember this, it felt like walking off a cliff to actually put your name on a sign and then have your photo on a sign was just the craziest, strangest thing ever, right? But my point to your question is you end up with a lot of incredible women to choose from, capable, competent women, because you start there and you have to start there. And I would say that it's like that. It has to be like that across every political party because we're 51% of the population, but it is hard. And there are barriers. Like, think about it. Being a mom, trying to juggle your life, trying to crisscross the country to get to Ottawa to do your work, dealing with the vitriol comments that come disproportionately high, because we know this for women, different than other people, let alone being racialized people. Those are all the things that really can get in the way of saying yes. So it is true. Women take a long time and have to be asked several times before they will actually say yes.
You're absolutely right, Mayor. You know what? Katie called me initially and I didn't call her back for a long time. For a long time. I literally left Katie Telford on red, which is not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
But I did not call her back. And then, you know what? Other people started calling. But it's true. They will have to ask 8, 10, 12 times because women
and be relentless.
Right? But women think about everybody else. Women think, well, how will this impact my family? Am I qualified? Rachael, to your point, women think, right? Am I qualified to do this? I'm not a leader. What do they mean? I can't, this isn't me, and we think about all the reasons we shouldn't run when there are so many reasons that we should. And it's a really interesting dynamic. There are, and I tell this to, women all the time in various groups, there are women leading PTAs. There are women leading, neighborhood drives that would be great MPs.
Yes.
They don't see themselves that way. They don't see themselves as leadership. They don't having the potential to lead that way because they're just doing small things. But to Mary's point, it's the House of Commons, right? And there's community attached to that. And so if you are leading in your community, absolutely you have what it takes to run and be an effective leader.
Everyone who's listening on this podcast, think about that. Let that sit with you. Maybe you want to put your name on a ballot because I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You too. You're giving me chills. You're saying all the things that we've been talking about for the past 2 seasons on this podcast, and you're saying it so beautifully. And it leads me to think about the fact that you were both very talented, very effective, very popular ministers, and you chose
Sure. Well, for me, 10 years in Ottawa. My friends kept reminding me as recent as a couple of weeks ago, it's nice to see you back. Haven't seen you in 10 years. Nice for you to be back. I thought 10 years is a great time, a great commitment to serve, because that's what these jobs are about. That's what, to put your name forward is to serve. And I feel very accomplished and very satisfied with the work. I know I worked very hard and gave it my all. If there's 100%, I probably gave 3 because it was that important to me, and because I understood, as Marci said earlier, every single day, every single hour is such a privilege, and it mattered. And so I gave it my all. So after 10 years and having the opportunity to serve in the file that I did, and now I guess the longest in the country, I think it's time to come back to private life, come back to the real world, if you will, and start another chapter. So that was my reason.
So I served half the time that Mayor did. I served for 5 years, but someone joked with me the other day and said 5 years at wage is 10 anywhere else. And I said, yeah, okay. I said, really, Marci, you've really probably done a decade. But it was an absolute, privilege to serve. For me, it was just about time. My mom passed away in September, and I really started thinking about time and what I wanted. When you get really cognizant, like we say, I don't want to get too deep here. Our days are numbered and all these things. But I really started thinking about that and thinking, okay, if I've got another chapter to, what do I want to be doing? I know for sure I want to be serving. Do I want to be serving in this capacity? And it was a very hard road to get to the point where I said, you know what? No, I think it's going to be something else. And so I made that very hard decision, knowing, however, that whatever I do next is going to have something to do with community and service. I'm not sure what that is, but television? It was just, who knows? Who knows? Maybe I have a little bit of broadcast left in me yet. We'll see.
Well, I for one would love to see you back on my screen. I watched you on TV for so many years. And so one day we'll have to have you back and to talk about that leap from journalism and daily television to politics, and which one was more stressful. All right. Well, I think we are going to have to leave it there, but obviously we have so many more questions. And of course, Mary, being the longest running trade minister, I have no doubt that we will be knocking on your door as we navigate the next few months for Canada and our global expansion of trade. But I want to sincerely thank both of you. And I meant that when I said that I would vote for both of you, because you are such incredible role models to all of us women who have the aspiration to run one day, but haven't made the plunge, and talking about family and all of those things. Yeah. That's what's holding me back. So I've been watching you guys, and you really set that bar very high for all of us. And we want to thank you now for joining us here and sharing your amazing stories, especially those of keeping your cabinet appointment secret to our audience. So
or not.
Or not. A little bit secret. Or not. Mary, Marci, Ian, thank you so much. And we'll talk to all of you next week. We'll be back with a new episode. Speak to you then.
Thank you for listening. New episodes air every Friday.
Subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and find us at beyondaballot.com.